Good. Okay. If he increased its oil, or reduced its oil, or reduced its frankincense, it is invalid. It is, oh, sorry. But if one performed kmitza on a milk offering, intending to eat its remainder outside, or an olive's volume of its remainder outside, or to burn its cometh outside, or an olive's volume of its cometh outside, or to burn its frankincense outside, it's invalid. But he carries no penalty of karos. And if he did so intending to eat its remainder tomorrow, or an olive's volume of its remainder tomorrow, or to burn its chametz on the altar tomorrow, or an olive's volume of its chametz tomorrow, or to burn its frankincense on the altar tomorrow, it's pigul, and one is liable to karos over it. Thank you. This is the rule. Anyone who performs kmitza or places the chametz on a vessel, or conveys it or burns it on the altar, intending to eat something which is meant to be eaten, or to burn on the altar something which is meant to be burnt on the altar, if the intent was for outside its area, it is invalid, but it carries no penalty of karos. But if for beyond its time, it is pigul, and one is liable to karos over it, provided that the part which makes it permissible is offered as required. In what manner is the part which makes it permissible considered to have been offered as required? If he performed kmitza in silence, but placed the chametz in a vessel, conveyed it or burnt it on the altar, or for beyond its time, or he performed kmitza with intent for beyond its time, but placed the chametz in a vessel, conveyed it, and burnt it on the altar in silence, or he performed kmitza, placed the chametz in a vessel, conveyed it, and burnt it on the altar for beyond its time. These are the cases in which the part which makes it permissible has been offered as required. In what manner is the part which makes it permissible not considered to have been offered as required? If he performed kmitza with intent for outside its area, but he placed the chametz in a vessel, conveyed it or burnt it on the altar for beyond its time, but he performed the kmitza for beyond its time, but he placed the chametz in a vessel, conveyed it, burnt it outside the place, and he performed kmitza, placed the chametz in a vessel, conveyed it or burnt it for outside its area, or the sinner's mikvah offering or jealousy mikvah offering was kmitza he performed for a designation other than its own, and placed the chametz in a vessel, conveyed it, and burnt it on the altar beyond its time, or he performed kmitza for beyond its time, and placed the chametz in a vessel, conveyed it, burnt it on the altar for a designation other than its own, or he performed kmitza, placed the chametz in a vessel, conveyed it, and burnt it on the altar for a designation other than its own. These are the cases in which the part which makes it permissible was not offered as required. If he intended to eat a kazayas outside and a kazayas tomorrow, or a kazayas tomorrow and a kazayas outside, or half a kazayas outside and half a kazayas tomorrow, or half a kazayas tomorrow and half a kazayas outside, it is invalid, but it carries no carbs. Said Rabbi Yehuda, this is the rule that the intent of time preceded the intent of place, it is pigul, and one is liable to karas over it, but if the intent of the place preceded the intent of time, it's invalid, but it carries no karas. However, the common saying in either case is invalid, but carries no karas penalty. If he intended to eat to burn half an olive's volume on the altar, it's valid, because eating and altar burning cannot be combined.
Okay. One more.
If one performs kmitza on a mincha offering intending to eat its remainder or to burn its chametz tomorrow, Rabbi Yossi agrees in this case that it is pigul and that one is liable to karos over it. If his intention was to burn its frankincense tomorrow, Rabbi Yossi says it's invalid, but it carries no karos penalty, but the Chachamim say it is pigul and one is liable to karos over it. They said to him, how is this different from an animal sacrifice? He said to them, because with an animal sacrifice, the blood, meat, and sacrificial parts are one, whereas the frankincense is not part of the mincha offering.
Okay. All right. Now, we talked about, when we're talking about pigul, we're going to talk about sacrifices that are brought together of two different types that are brought together, well, not necessarily two different types, but two different objects that are brought together, and one of them becomes pigul. What happens to the other one? Okay, so shnei kvasim, the two sheep. This is an offering that's brought on Shavuos. Okay. And the two sheep are brought together with the shtei halechem, the two parts of bread.
Right.
But now the Mishnah says, what happens if they shechted the two sheep, having intention to eat one of the two loaves tomorrow? Right, the time for eating these loaves is only until that night. So he had a pigul intention for one of the loaves. or if he's hikti shnei bazichin le'echol echad min hasedarim lemachar, or when they're talking about the weekly showbread, right? You're supposed to put the two containers of frankincense that are on the shulchan as well, and those are supposed to go in the mizbeach, and then the kohanim eat the remainder of the bread.
As soon as they say tomorrow, it's pickle already.
Correct. Okay, so now if he brought the two bazichin thinking that he's going to eat one of the sedarim of the showbread tomorrow, Rabbi Yossi Omer osa chalav osa aseder shechishav alav pigul v'chayvin alav kares. This is only the one that he thought about. That's the one that's chayv kares. Masheni pasul v'ein v'kares. And yes, the second one is pasul, but there's no kares on it. Rabbi Yossi views them as two totally distinct and separate objects. They say the two things of levona, or the two showbreads, or the two loaves that are brought on Shavuos, are inextricably intertwined. You cannot separate between them and say that one becomes pigul and the other one doesn't. Whatever, if the one becomes pigul, so is the other. Okay. Now what happens? Forget about the pigul. We're back to the showbreads. Oh, no, back to the back to the showbreads and the bread that's given to the that's brought on Shavuos. Okay, what happens if one of them becomes tameh? Okay, there clearly tumah is something that takes effect on an object. So it's possible for one of the breads to become tameh, or one of the rows of six. You got six showbreads, and let's say they become tameh, but the other one didn't. Okay, so what do you do with them? Rabbi Yehuda Omer shnehem yetzu lebeis hasreifa. So he takes this connection that we said in the previous clause. So this connection goes so strong that you can't even eat the one without eating the other. She'en korban tzibur chaluk, because these are both korban tzibur and you can't divide between them. Therefore, they both have to be taken out and burned, even though the one isn't tameh. Okay, so the one that's tameh can't be eaten, but the one that's tahor, there's no reason not to eat it. So don't separate between it. So when it comes to the kavana, when it comes to the pigul, the Chachamim say you can't separate between them. If one becomes pigul, the other becomes pigul, because it's but it's not the same as tumah. Tumah is actually something that happens to the physical object.
Right.
Kavana is an actual contact. Okay. Which is interesting, because tumah itself is not something that you can see physically. But nonetheless, that's the halacha. Okay, hatoda. A korban toda consists, remember, of an animal and 40 different loaves of bread. 4 times 10. We've got 10 types of 10 instances of 4 types of bread that are brought all together. Okay, hatoda mefageles is alechem, alechem eno mefagel is hatoda. So the korban can cause pigul to the bread, but the bread cannot cause pigul to the toda. How so? If he shechts the toda, thinking that he's going to eat from it tomorrow, then both it and its bread all become pigul. However, if he shechted the toda thinking he was going to eat the bread tomorrow, okay, why? This is a case of ikar and tafel. The korban is the ikar, the bread is tafel. So if the korban, as goes the korban, so goes the bread, but the bread doesn't mess up the korban.
Can you explain to me? There are 40 loaves of bread here.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Obviously, they're not eating 40 loaves of bread. So what happens to this once it goes over the time? It's pigul.
Once it actually becomes over the time, it becomes nosar, not pigul.
Okay.
Okay. Pigul, it happens immediately if you have intention to eat it after the time.
All right. So if you don't have intention to eat it, but just the time gets too late, and
if the time happens, then it becomes nosar, and it's also chayv kares.
So it has to get burnt. Then
it's correct.
Nobody eats it. I'm not picturing.
So the korban toda is a lot of meat and bread that has to be eaten. Therefore, he has to invite his friends to come and eat with him.
I was thinking that, right? Okay.
No, that's a drasha with the korban toda is that you have if you have something good happen to you, share it with your friends, bring them into the simcha. Okay, hakvasim faglim esalechem. So similarly, back to Shavuos, the animal korbanos, it can cause pigul to the shtei alechem, but lechem eno mefagel es hakvasim, but not the other way around. If he has a pigul intention on the sheep, then they and the bread are pigul. But if he wanted to eat from the bread, but the animals are unaffected. Okay. Mishna Dalet. So the korban, a korban can cause pigul to the nesachim that accompany it. Once they have been accepted into a kli, says Rabbi Meir. Okay, because Rabbi Meir holds that the throwing of the blood of the korban is the matir for the nesachim for the mizbeach. Okay, so remember, the pigul requires a matir beforehand. It has to be a separate matir. But however, the Chachamim disagree with Rabbi Meir, and they say that the nesachim don't have a matir at all, because they can be brought completely separately from the korban. They can be brought the next day if you want. Okay, therefore there's no direct connection between them, and being that there's no specific matir that allows you to bring the nesachim, there's no pigul by them either. So this whole Mishnah that we're talking about is talking about Rabbi Meir's opinion. Nesachim einan mefaglim es hazevach, but a nesach cannot cause pigul to a zevach, again because the zevach is ikar and the nesachim are tafel. Keitzad hasa shochet is a zevach leechol mimena lemachar. If he shechts it thinking he's going to eat from it tomorrow, hu unesachav mefugalim, then both it and the libations are pigul. If he says he's going to bring the nesachim tomorrow, remember, this is all Rabbi Meir's opinion because he holds that this can be, but the Chachamim are saying, what are you talking about? There's no pigul by nesachim at all. So this whole Mishnah is not shaykh as far as Chachamim are concerned. Okay.
All right.
Right.
And we are at Yud Beis Vav. They would carry them on poles when those in front have emerged on the wall of the courtyard, and those in the rear have not yet emerged. Those in the front contaminate their garments with tumah, while those in the rear do not contaminate their garments with tumah until they emerge. When both these and those have emerged, both these and those contaminate their gardens with tumah. Red Shimon says neither these nor those contaminate their garments with tumah until the fire catches onto most of them. And once the meat has been charred, the one who burns them does not contaminate his garments with tumah. If one slaughters and offers up an offering outside the temple, and he is liable for the slaughter and liable for the offering up. Rabbi Yossi Agili says if he slaughtered it within the temple and offered it outside, he is liable. But if he slaughtered it outside and offered it outside, he is not liable. Since he has not offered up anything but a disqualified offering outside the temple, they said to him, even when one slaughters within the temple and offers it up outside, as soon as he takes it up outside the temple, he has disqualified it. A person contaminated by tumah who ate either holy foods, which are tamei, or holy foods, which are tahor, is liable. Rabbi Yossi Agili says, if one who is tamei ate that which is tahor, he is liable. But if one who is tamei ate that which is tamei, he is not liable, since he has not eaten anything but that which is already tamei. They said to him, even a person who is tamei who ate something which is tahor has rendered it tamei as soon as he touches it. But a person who is tahor, who ate holy food which is tamei, is not liable, for one is liable only for personal tumah. Okay. And we have RS. We have Gimel Aleph. An anointed Kohen who sinned and then passed from his position of anointment, and similarly a king who sinned and then passed from his appointment of greatness, the anointed Kohen brings a bull and the king brings a he-goat. The anointed Kohen who passes from his position of appointment and then sinned, and similarly the king who passed from his position of greatness and then sinned, the anointed Kohen brings a bull, but the king is like a commoner. If they sinned before they were appointed and were then appointed, they are like the commoner. Reb Shimon says, if it became known to them before they were appointed, they are liable. If after they were appointed, they are exempt. Who is the Nasi? This is the king, as it is said, and he will do one of the commands of Hashem, his God. That is a Nasi who has none above him but Hashem, his God.
Okay.
On to Shavuos. Hey, Aleph. The oath of deposit applies to both men and women, non-relatives and relatives, those qualified and those disqualified in court and out of court, by his own mouth. But if endured by others, he is not liable unless he denies it in court. These are the words of Reb Meir. But the comments say whether by his own mouth or whether endured by others, since he denies it, he's liable. He is liable for a willful transgression of his oath, as well as for his inadvertent transgression, coupled with a willful denial of the deposit, but he is not liable for his inadvertent transgression. Now, what is he liable for? What is he liable for his willing transgression? A guilt offering worth at least 2 silver shekels. What is the case of the oath of deposit? If someone said to him, "Give me my deposit that I have in your possession," and he replied, "I swear that you have nothing in my possession," or he replied, "You have nothing in my possession," to which the other said, "I adore you," and he said, "Amen," and he is liable. If he adored him 5 times, either in the court or out of court, and he denied it, he is liable for each one. Reb Shimon, what is the reason? Because he can retract and confess. If 5 people were pressing claims against him and they said to him, "Give us the deposits that we have in your possession," to which he replied, "I swear that you have nothing in my possession," he is liable only once. But if he replied, "I swear that you have nothing in my possession, nor you," he is liable for each one. Reb Eliezer says not unless he says, "I swear" at the end. Reb Shimon says not unless he says, "I swear" to each one. If someone said to him, "Give me my deposit, give me the deposit, the loan, the stolen article, the lost article that I have in your possession," and he replied, "I swear that you have nothing in my possession," he is liable only once. But if he replied, "I swear that you have in my possession neither a deposit, a loan, a stolen article, or a lost article," he is liable for each one. If someone said to him, give me the wheat, the barley, the spelt that I have in your possession," and he replied, "I swear that you have nothing in my possession," he is liable only once. But if he replied, "I swear that you have in my possession neither wheat, barley, or spelt," he's liable for each one. And Reb Meir says, even if he says a wheat, barley, and spelt, he is liable for each one. Okay. On to the Dharam. Okay, Vav Aleph.
Base.
One, right?
No, base.
Sorry. One who makes a net of prohibiting something prepared in a pot is forbidden only of boiled food. But if he said, "Kodam, what goes into a pot with respect to my tasting it," he is forbidden whatever he is cooked in a pot. If he prohibited the preserved food, he is forbidden only preserved vegetables. Preserved food with respect to my tasting, he is forbidden all preserved foods. The seed food, he is forbidden only seethed meat. Seethed food with respect to my tasting, he is forbidden all seethed foods. The roast, he is forbidden only roasted meat. These are the words of Reb Yehuda. Reb Yehuda. Roast with respect to my tasting, he is forbidden all roasted foods. The salted food, he is forbidden only salted fish. Salted food with respect to my tasting is forbidden all salted food. If one said, "Konam fishes with respect to my tasting," he's forbidden them whether large or small, or whether salted or unsalted, whether raw or cooked, but he is permitted hash, taras, and brine. One who makes a net of prohibiting assorted hash fish is forbidden hash taras, but permitted brine and fish juice. One who makes a net of prohibiting hash taras is forbidden brine and fish juice. One who makes a net of prohibiting the milk is permitted whey.
Oh, no, okay, no, that's it.
That's it, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind being prohibited that fish juice. Okay. Meister Shani, Gimel, Yud Gimel. What happened? Beit Shammai says he must open and empty into the winepress, but Beit Hillel says he must open and need not empty. Where does this apply? In places where they generally sold sealed. But where do they generally sold open, the jar does not become non-holy. However, if he wishes to impose a stringency on himself and sell by measure, the jar becomes non-holy. Reb Shimon says, likewise, if one said to his fellow, "This jar I am selling to you without the jars," the jar becomes non-holy. If one takes Meister Shani produce from an expensive place to a cheap place, or from a cheap place to an expensive place, he redeems it at the price of his place. If one brings produce from the threshing floor to the city, or jars of wine from the winepress to the city, the profit belongs to Meister Shani, and the expenses out of his household. Meister Shani may be redeemed at a cheap price. as the shopkeeper buys, but not as he sells. At the rate the money changer accepts small change, and not at the rate he provides small change. Meiser Sheni may not be redeemed in a lump. If its price is known, it may be redeemed according to the valuation of one witness, and if its value is not known, it must be redeemed according to the valuation of three. As for instance, wine that has formed, a film, produce that has gone bad, or coins that have rusted. Okay, and we're on to the guy. Okay, above Aleph. A basic Paharis is the size of a Sicilian grist squared. The area of a grist is equivalent to 9 lentils, and the area of a lentil is equivalent to the area of which 4 hairs grow. Thus, there are 36 hairs in a nega. A bahar is the size of a grist that contained a michya, the size of a lentil. If the bahar is spread, it is tame. If it receded, it becomes tahor. If the michya expanded, the bahar is tahor. If the michya receded, the bahar is tahor. The bahar is the size of a grist that contained a michya less than a lentil. If the bahar is expanded, it becomes tame. If it receded, it becomes tahor. And if the michya expanded, the bahar becomes tame. If the michya receded, may receive the tame, renders the tame, and the sages render it tahor because the nega does not expand inwards.
Okay.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay. I'm going to
Have
run.
a great day. Enjoy. Bye.
Cheers.